Hey all, here is a replay version of the most recent live stream Q&A on all things Social Security that occurs every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is with all the little silences carved out of it. So I hope it's an easier listen for those who are doing the replay versus being there live. And we'd love to see you live. So feel free to pop in. Bye-bye now. Hey guys, can you hear me? I see Autumn, Harvest, Dude Ranch. I saw you in Jonathan's live stream last week, didn't I? That's so cool. La Lulu is here also. You know, it's really weird. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? I'm going to type this in and see if you guys can read it. I don't know if you can hear me. I hope you can. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Michelle, Jesse. Okay. It's funny because I had this like up and ready a couple hours ago as I was doing other things, and there were some people get in early and they throw their comments in and they probably go about their morning or whatever, and those are all gone. And I was like, why is that happening? Yeah, very strange. I don't know why, because normally I think they stay. I even closed totally out and can come back later. I don't know what's going on, unless I'm just misremembering. But anyway, I hope you guys are all doing great. It's Happy Hump Day Wednesday. I have a bit of a cold, so bear with me. I probably will have to use my toilet paper when my nose starts to run. I think it's that change of season thing. My son had it, or had something. He had like a fever, so he had to stay home one day this week. But I was like, don't even check your fever, just go to school. Get going. Where I live, I don't know if any of you are from Pennsylvania, but they're very, very strict on days lost from school. In fact, you get 10 excused absences total for the year. My kid has asthma. Sometimes there's just exacerbations where he has no sleep at all the night before. I mean, it's not too terribly bad, but and then I'll just be like, no, I want you to rest. But you can't do it because we will get it's a crime for the parent. If you get 10 excused, which could be a doctor's note or a parent note. And then after that, every single absence has to be with a doctor note, which is a bit of a pain. Like, do you drag your kid to urgent care every time? It's a little over the top, particularly when he's like top grades. He's like one of those naturally really brilliant people. It's a little annoying. He doesn't much have to study. And I keep telling him, I go, when you go to college, it's going to be different. You're going to be around. Although I think it's different this year because he's in honors and AP classes and stuff. So he's now in with people who are similarly academically inclined. By the way, academically inclined, as probably every single one of you knows, does not mean the person has an iota of common sense. Yeah, or street smarts or whatever. Anyway, okay, I babble. I hope you guys are doing good. I see Autumn, Harvest, Dude Ranch, which is so funny because when I was participating with Jonathan last week, I met Autumn there. That's kind of fun. Daryl's in the house. Jesse, MCK, Rat's Nest, Michelle, La Lulu. Awesome. So we're starting off here. Okay. I'm not even gonna figure out what we have coming out in videos in the next days because I'm a little bit behind in looking at them. So, and I don't want to talk any more than I have to just because of my cold. Anyway, so let's get to it. So Autumn is from Southern Oregon, and by Dude Ranch, Autumn, right? Is it a cockadoodle or a doodle something? It's a dog, right? It's not a Dude Ranch as in D-U-D. If I was single when starting my SSDI case, will it matter if I get married in the process? If it's SSDI, Autumn, it's totally fair game. Go get married. Yeah. Yeehaw. If it was SSI, it would be likely a very different story, unless you married a person who doesn't work and is equally broke. But SSDI, yeah, you can get married to a millionaire. Yep. Because you're just claiming the disability insurance that you bought. So Autumn is 60 years of age, 60 years young. I'm right behind you, Autumn. Lulu, Joy, friends and fan followers ready to learn. Oh, super sweet. Right. So Autumn goes on to say, anxiety and depression. I have always been anxious, panic disorder. It's so hard, isn't it? During this lengthy SSDI process, I'm moving from anxious to somewhat depressed. Do judges view this as a real issue? They do, if you're treating for it. If not, it's not medical. It's just you saying it. But Autumn, depending on your vocational profile, at 60, really anything over 50, you can potentially have a medical vocational rule, right? And for everyone who's the medical vocational rules the slang is the grids, right? We're all kind of familiar with those. And for every grid, there's basically 3 prongs for anybody to try to fit themselves into the grid and be awarded on that basis. And one of the 3 are the skills from any past relevant work. That's the work in the last 5 years. Are any of those skills transferable? So there's 2 aspects to transferable. And transferable is not the easiest concept for any of us. But one is, are they by their nature something that could be transferred to a less physical job that Autumn or anybody else could do? And so the SSA and the vocational experts already have kind of decided which ones are and which ones aren't transferable skills. So if a skill learned is normally transferable, the other argument I sometimes make to show it is not is if the person themselves, due to an impairment, would not be able to transfer those skills to another, to flip them into some other job. And that might be because depression and anxiety, I think, severely impacts or substantially impacts our focus and our concentration, which means we might not be able to focus and concentrate enough to grab those skills in our heads from that prior job and manipulate them into a new job. So, for instance, maybe you don't remember those transferable skills. Maybe you've since gotten a deteriorating memory, which I think happens when we get depressed and anxious. It's really really interferes with our I don't want to say cognitive ability, but somewhat. And that's true. We don't have to be, off the skids nuts for this. This is just depression, anxiety of a person who can otherwise function quite fine, in the day-to-days, but not from a necessarily like a skill job. If you had a skill job, Autumn, or even maybe semi-skilled. And it could also be that those transferable skills are now outdated and that no new job is going to be, this is true, particularly in like IT and things like that, things that use technology. The way they do things changes. Everything changes so fast now, which is really to people's benefit with SSD, I think. When they changed the rule for past relevant work to the last 5 years from what used to be 15 bloody years, it was the best thing that they've ever done with rule changes. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and it was a shocker because I knew it was going to be very assistive in people with the grids. And I was just surprised that they agreed to do it because, they're always looking out for the funds and everything and trying to make sure they're protected. So I hope that helps explain it, that if you are treating for the anxiety and panic disorder and depression, all that stuff really puts a fog on some level of fog. It might not be a total fog. It could be you can kind of see out, but they do impact our memory and our focus and our concentration, staying on task. Anxiety makes us very distracted. We get distracted. We can't even sleep at night because we're distracted by these racing thoughts sometimes and the worries and everything else. But that's true also during the day. So that's just something to think about, how it can help you if it's presented in the right way. So I presume your lawyer's doing that. Let's see, where am I? Okay. Dimple. By the way, Dimple, I've received coffee. I'll chat with you about it separately. Dimple from Ohio. Good to see you always, Dimple. Jesse, MCK. I saw Jesse last week. I have a court date, but haven't heard anything from my attorney. I sent an email asking if they have what they need. That's helpful. Presumably they're going to do trial prep, hearing prep with you. If it's been more than a couple weeks, maybe reach out again. We do I'm sure every representative is different, but we do our hearing prep. I try to do them not the day before the hearing, but 2 days before the hearing, or even up to 4 days before the hearing, but not too far in advance because people are going to forget stuff. And then we would just be, spending another 3 hours or whatever it is. But yeah,
I mean, we do it with everybody, but it's really closer in time to the hearing because you want it to be fresh in their mind. Plus, you want everything that everything as updated as possible when you have it, because we often talk about things on the function report because those are going to be the kind of questions that we want to elicit at hearing. So the judge is going to be asking questions and you want to know your answers, and you want to know what your answers are and see if they've changed from your prior function report, and therefore you can then clarify how they've changed or why they've changed. So we try to do that close in time to the hearing. La Lulu says, can claimants only request their file record copy one time during the process? When is ideal? I'm not sure where you're at. Are you on recon, La Lulu? You can ask for as many times as you want, presumably. They're often very slow, but I think they only give it to you once in the whole case, which is kind of BS. They should do it at least once at every level without charging you. They say they can charge you for a second. But, it's not really fair, because if you get it on this day, you need to see what's going on so you can work on it this day. 2 months from now, you need to know what else is in there now. So I really think they're going to have to start getting up at least the F section for, pro se claimants, so they can see what medical evidence is in there, so they can know what might be missing that they have to go get. Autumn says, yes, I learned about you from Jonathan's podcast. Really enjoyed your perspective. Yeah, thank you. I have so much fun with him. He's great. I've known him quite a while now. He's a favorite. Jesse says there's a lack of communication from them. This is like I hear this constantly. And I don't really understand it. I mean, using a portal with a messaging system is a great way. I mean, yeah, the lawyer can't be hopping on the phone and spinning on the phone with chit chat with clients. We have to limit our time to case needs as we see them. But you can always have a message system. I know our portal I think it's really good, and it's affordable. And it gives all of our clients their own little account in there, and we can message them. They can message us. I can text them from there. It's a different number than the regular phone that we have. And they can upload documents that they want me to see. I can upload documents for them to either download and fill out and then return, and they can return it by upload. So it's super handy. I don't know what I would do without it, but it's also super handy because anyone on the team, if someone asks a quick question, anyone on the team that's, they're reviewing, there's a little alert that this person asked a question or sent a message. So anybody can get them an answer as soon as possible. Or if someone's working on function report for a client and they need clarification, they can ask that through either texting or the message system. Like, you were a little late on this answer. Can we get a little clarification here? And that's how we get things done. So I don't know why. Okay, dude or doodles. Oh, so that's a cross between a poodle and something else, right? D. What's the other dog for the doodle? That's what I meant today. I was gonna bring her. Someone's, not us, but someone close to us is just kind of saved a little puppy. I know this is terrible. We're constantly. It's like a Autumn. It looks like a dachshund mixed with a beagle, and it's a puppy, a little boy puppy, and he's so cute. He still has a little naked Buddha belly. So I was holding him and getting my puppy time in. I mean, I have dogs here, and they drive me crazy, but I'll take a little puppy time anytime. But he's not a millionaire. Who's not a millionaire? Who's not a millionaire? Who's not a millionaire? Okay. It is this process that's increasing Autumn's anxiety into depression. I know, and I get it. It's a real pain, and anxiety does turn into depression. I think it eats away at our souls almost. And I also find, I don't know if you have a pain, physical pain problem. I find that people with chronic pain start to slip into, it doesn't have to be severe depression. They're not suicidal or anything, but they start to get depressed and and again, I have no doubt that depression affects our ability to be so quick on our feet. We're just slower. Remember things as quickly and be able to manipulate, things. I don't even know what the words would be in the, executive functioning and all these different kinds of memory. But for sure, And so I think it's important, if you have depression, any of you out there, or anxiety, and you don't treat with a mental health professional, I do think it's ideal that you start to do so. I know, and I'm not talking about medications or anything. Yes, everything can paint a picture, but if you don't treat it all, and I'm talking about talk therapy, then there is no necessarily they might not think it's more than a mild impact, which isn't going to help too much because they say it doesn't affect work. But if you get the talk therapy, that's where you talk to them about how distracted you are, how the depression just leaves you kind of like, duh, I mean, we all have our ups and down days, and I think we really do get a little duh when we are experiencing that. Yeah, we can still go to the grocery store and do some basic stuff, but high end focus, it's almost like you don't have enough sleep. And I know when I don't have enough sleep, it's not when I pick my times to do my briefs, for instance. I do other things that have to be done. You pick and choose, right? When you're top of your game versus not. And I think when we have anxiety and it's turned into depression or just anxiety, we are already getting impacted with that. But you need to complain about it to the therapist, so it's in the therapist notes and on an ongoing every session basis. And they can teach you, I think this is what they're supposed to do, maybe coping mechanisms to help mitigate the effects of anxiety and depression, if not mitigate the actual anxiety and depression as well. So that's what the talk therapy, I think, for a lot of people does. Daryl Smith says, is SSDI taxable? It can be. There's something called, with the IRS, combined income. And you can actually find it on the IRS, and I think even in the SSA site. And I think I have a video on it. Combined income. To determine if your Social Security, and this would be all Social Security, not just SSDI, it could be Social Security retirement. If your combined income, and I'm going to have the formula wrong, but it's like your adjusted gross income, I don't know what else, but Social Security income is included in the combined income. However, only, I believe, half of the Social Security income is included in the combined income. And so once you get your combined income, if you are a single person and your combined income, given that it's only half of your Social Security plus any other income you have, is less than $25,000 that year, you will have no taxation on your Social Security. If you're married, I think it's $34,000 as a dual, as a married person. Bitter irony to me is that the $25,000, if you stay beneath it, or the $34,000 if you stay beneath it, combined income figures have been the same longer than I've been practicing. So I always say, well, if they wanted to not tax people a certain amount, and $25,000 seemed like the right amount 40 years ago or whatever it was, how on earth can they not apply COLA to that? I bitch about this all the time. How can they not apply COLA to that? I think I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Excuse me, guys. How can they not apply COLA to that? So that it should be increasing, because even your Social Security benefits increase, and eventually that alone is going to tip your combined income over. And once you have a combined income over, and I'm just going to talk about the single people for simplicity's sake, 25,000, bang, next thing you know, your Social Security benefit is now 50% of it is taxed. And as our combined income goes up, that 50% that's going to be taxed at whatever rate you're taxed at, with in your federal scheme, that can be up to 85%. So always 15% of Social Security is not taxed, but for people that have more income, up to 85% can be. And for the rest of the people that tip over the 25,000, 50% can be. And under 25,000, none of it will be. But if that 25,000 was considered the amount that none of it should be taxed 40 years ago, shouldn't that be like 50,000 now, or whatever the inflationary impact would be on that? Burns me up when they don't apply COLA, because by definition, you are going to be, anyone who's under the combined income amount will one day not be, even if they don't earn any more money, because their Social Security alone is with COLAs that are applied to it are going to tweak them up until eventually they are over the 25,000. So ticks me off. Not fair. Not fair to my Social Security people. Hi, Wayne. Nice to see you from Kentucky. Daryl Smith. Once approved for SSDI, will the SSA check? Will the SSA check what, Daryl? Whether you should be taxed? No, that's the IRS. And do know this also. Like an employer can do withholdings, you can ask the Social Security to withhold. I think it might be up to 10%. I'm not sure. Maybe it's higher. But you can ask. There's certain percentages you can ask. Let's say you know you have other income. Your spouse is earning, or you're loaded and you have great investment income, and you know you're going to be taxed on your Social Security. You can ask them to do withholding just like you would an employer, and use, I think it would be is that the W-4? If for no other reason, you'll have a quick little refund at the end of the year, come April. So I don't know, it's something to think about. Kind of conservative and cautious. So I mean, I even try to pay I have to pay estimated taxes on my income because I'm self-employed. I try to err on the side of caution and overpay. Yes, I'm not going to earn interest on it, but me knowing that it's paid is a big deal. But what I also do, so I'm trying to get better at being more accurate. It's very hard in this kind of practice though, because we have our peaks and our valleys with the fact that the SSA doesn't pay timely. So I put when I have income, then I'm like, all right, I'm going to save it to the side for taxes at the end of the quarter, or come next April, or whatever I'm doing my taxes, February. I put it in a high interest account. And it's going to sound silly, but I have one with Robinhood who pays high interest if you opt for this certain, program. Yeah, it's Robinhood of all things, right? But it's easy. And I'll throw money in there and it'll be earning 4%, which you could never get. My checking accounts and my savings accounts are like, they're zero. The savings account, if I had any money in one, would be like 0.025%. It's like basically zero. You're losing money because inflation is 8 times that amount or 10 times that amount. So I figure, right, let me just put it in there and then let it earn the interest while I'm waiting for tax time. And then I just made a few bucks, $100 here, $100 here. I'm a little thrifty like that. But yeah, the SSA is not going to check or care about your taxation. That is the IRS. Gemini, nice to see you. Gemini says she went to the consultative exam, the mental exam on August 27th, then went to physical consultative exam on September 3rd. What to expect after the CE exam and how long before the decision? Looks like Gemini applied is that October 2024 and was just told of exams August 75. Oh yeah, I think we talked about this. You had a long delay. You probably didn't have an adjudicator for a long time. Yeah, they were really backed up last year. It's getting a little better, but it's still not great. Yeah, so usually what we're used to seeing is after a CE exam, that is usually the last thing they do before they ship it off to a medical expert within the SSA to review all the records now, including the CE reports and all of your treating providers, so that person can determine if you meet a listing, or if you don't meet a listing, well, what's your RFC? What's your exertional limit? What's your this or that, all the little, things in the RFC. RFC, guys, is residual functional capacity. Now, sometimes if you're about to have some significant treatment, they might wait to get those records, even though they've already done the CE exams. But they would wait to get those records, but not send it to the medical expert yet, because they want all that stuff to go to the medical expert. Typically, I think the CE exams are the last thing, and then it goes to the medical expert. It used to be like a week or two, but I think it's probably a little longer now. I'm thinking the medical experts might be backed up. I don't know. So maybe it could still be a couple months. I think it can really vary. They don't really have a deadline on themselves. Deadlines are all on us, right? Dimple. Yeah, Dimple. I'm actually, I'm probably going to save it. I don't make big pots of coffee. Although we're thinking about going back to big pots of coffee. We do the little Keurig things, but we did do big pots of coffee when we went down to the shore 2 weeks ago. And that was kind of fun. I mean, it sounds so silly, right? We're talking about coffee, but It's having that big, I can smell that aroma. I kind of miss it. So Kirk doesn't quite pull it off the same way. Dimple shows the coffee. Look at you. Justin Yu says, hi, Stephanie. How's it going? It's going good, except it's cold there, Justin. But fortunately, that's not a big deal. It was a terrible night's sleep, though. It was really bad. I thought I took NyQuil, generic NyQuil, but I think I would have gotten to sleep a lot faster if I did. I'm like, maybe I didn't take it. I was, I had my laptop out on the couch and I was listening to the news. This is what I do kind of a lot. I had the new parrot out on his perch. Oh, he's so cute. She is so cute, guys. Turns out, the way the elderly lady just seemed to describe it to my daughter was, you never have them on your shoulder. They can pick out your eye, all that kind of stuff. And I know that's true, but sorry, I'm just cleaning my house. I can have this bird on my shoulder, and she'll let you, if you go kiss, kiss, she puts her little beak towards you, and you kiss her on the beak. So cute. She's very gentle and calm compared to my little twits that some of you have met. It's pretty funny. I want to get a perch probably right back here. That I can move around, but I want her to be able to, and I want to have a perch good for her size and a perch we can stand a floor thing. So I'm trying to get someone to build one for me because I think that would be great. It would be good for her to have company. They're out there. I can actually see her from here. I put her where I can see her from my door. So sometimes I'll call out to her and she talks and she says, hello. It's cute. It sounds like she has an accent. It's adorable. Daisy the Duchess says, greetings from Florida. Hi, Daisy. Deb Lindley's in the house. Hi, Deb. She says, hi to all you kids. Okay, so La Lulu says, I am mid-recon. Okay. If this didn't already get answered, can an unofficial, uncompensated disability advocate or is file access to... No, anyone who is you could have a rep, you'd have to probably come on as your representative. They're not going to be able to get into the ERA. Unless ERA, you have to be registered with the SSA as one of the practitioners, basically. But they can ask for it like you can from your local office. You know that, right? With the 3288. No, I know, because they have to get manually someone in there, and you just want to be able to get into the electronic file, right? Like those with like the attorneys can and the non-attorney reps. But yes, someone can be, they have to be official to stand in your shoes and ask for things on your behalf. But they can be uncompensated because on that form, like the 1696 and or the 1693, I think the 1696, we say whether we're going to be charging a fee. And of course, we're always charging a fee 99% of the time. If there's going to be a fee payable, maybe 1%, I click no. Usually that's for, family or friend, who I'm close with. But otherwise, yeah, they could be uncompensated by rule, like by their own decision, and it's marked off. I'm not talking about the accidental pro bonos that kind of get thrust upon us, but I'm just trying to think if there's a better way. The file access, I think you're talking about the Electronic Records Express, and it's authorized attorneys and non-attorney reps. It doesn't have to be an attorney, but they have to be, we go through kind of a vigorous, I remember when I got my access many, many years ago, when they first came out with the technology, I was one of the first ones. And I think it was because I was on a Mac system. I use Mac. They said that because their CDs don't work for Mac people, frankly, they're antiquated and they don't work for anybody, in my opinion, but because they absolutely don't work on Macs, we Mac people were able to be like the first people to get electronic access. It was the best thing ever. I was so glad. I feel like I was fairly new. At the time, but prior to that, I'd have to make an appointment, go down to my local Social Security office and stand in front of the copy machine and make a copy of their paper file. And if I had a person far away, I would have to coordinate with them all, and then they would be asking that far away office to send them this big accordion file of the SSA file. That's how bad it was. It's so much better now. It really is. But I think you're kind of screwed if you don't have in terms of ERE, Electronic File Express, unless you're going to get one who's not going to, you can certainly get one, if you can, that agrees to not charge a fee, but a regular person isn't going to be able to do it. I don't believe. Because like I said, we had to have an interview. and fill out the, I think it's like this, I don't even know, is this, $16.99 might be for direct withholding. I'm not sure. But I mean, it's been like 17 years or something. Daryl says, if approved for SSDI, will SSA do routine checks on VA medical records? VA is concerned about me being by myself, memory issues becoming more of a problem. If you're approved for SSDI, no, SSA doesn't invade your medical files. Once you're approved, you're done. If you go through a CDR, they will say, please fill out the 827 so we can review to see that you're still disabled. And you'll do the 827, giving them permission to do that, because if you don't give them permission to do it, then there's going to be no evidence that they can look at that shows that you're still disabled. So you can always say no, but you're going to suffer the lack of evidence. But they don't, the SSA doesn't invade your privacy. They just don't. Dimple says, I'm considering trying to go back to work next week. You're crazy, Dimple. We've talked about this since the knee seems to be healing well. Well, I'm glad for that. The RA is still a major issue with my hand use. Need to try and get my work record. What do you mean your work records? What do you mean, like attendance? I mean, yeah, you can try, and then if you want to keep working, you just keep working, right? Deb Lindley says, please everyone don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Thank you. Well, says she's not allowed to print or email anything to my personal account from my work email. So what? So what's the point of going into the office since you can't print it out anyway? Is that what you're saying? I'm not sure. Jesse says, oops, they haven't used the portal since May. It's so frustrating. Their own portal, Jesse? I mean, they would message you through that, and you have you messaged them through the portal and they don't respond? I mean, it's the easiest thing to do. I mean, gosh, when I get bogged down, like this week was pretty bogged down. I was going through inboxes in the portal this morning because I'm like, oh my God, because they just seem to be a lot lately. And I feel bad when it's like 3 days out. Like, we have to respond within 2 days. I'm kind of a weotch about that, but 2 days can be sometimes difficult. I mean, technically I shouldn't be counting weekends, because even though I do work on weekends, I don't think anyone should expect me to be responding on the weekends. I don't think that'd be very nice. I do it usually, but I'm just saying, like, if I don't, because I couldn't get through them all, I think that should be okay. What do you think? Okay. Dimple says, not sure how I'll get my work info other than using my phone to get pictures. Yeah, I see. Yeah, gotta love phones with pictures, right? We can get all sorts of evidence. I doubt that would be acceptable for proof of my declining work performance. I think in every state, you have a right to your personnel. You have to request it and all this other stuff. You should look up the rules in your state. However, the quicker way, like you said, is if you can go. So what I think what you're saying is, I'll go back to work. I'll bring up, did you get any write-ups for like slowness or being out too often or something? Dimple, get your pay stubs maybe for 2025 if they show a lot of sick days that the attendance, even though you weren't canned or anything, was declining. That can be strong evidence. It's pretty objective. Obviously, performance evaluations that say, Dimple, you're just not getting the job done. That could be helpful too. So yeah, take pictures if you can't otherwise send them or print them at work. Can't print them at work either. Autumn says poodle, lab, cocker. Australian labradoodles, which would be a Labrador and a poodle. Trendy, hi Trendy. Trendy says, is there any possibility, any hope that we can receive Social Security increases by chance? Hopefully not, because the amount that we paid in was calculated for what we get now. If the SSA were to start doling out more money than charged people in Social Security taxes, guess what's going to happen to the fund? I mean, it's just not, it's going to deplete it more than it already is. I mean, it's already getting sucked dry in some ways that it shouldn't be. But, if they say, oh, we decided instead of, the person that paid in for $1,500 a month, we're now going to say he should get $3,000 a month. There will be no money left because nobody paid in. It's a calculation, it's actuarially done. How much must, given the population and the age, how much must the taxes be on people to, so if we're paying, what is it, 12.4% Well, if you're a W-2, you're paying 6.2, and your employer is actually entirely personally footing your other half. If you're self-employed like me, we pay the whole 12.4 because we are the employer of ourselves. Can you imagine if they said, let's just jack that up to 30% so we can pay them more later? Taxes are high as it is. I don't know. You know, I'm not a big tax fan, but I don't know. I think if you want to pay more to have more in retirement, you really should be paying into an annuity or an IRA or something like that. You have to be working though for an IRA. But you know, there's other ways to create monies for yourself for later. It's not just through Social Security. Social Security is just the mandatory one, right? Forced one. Do you know what I'm saying? So you could buy a disability policy, pay for it. You know, other ways. You probably can't get a policy now if you're already disabled, but if you have a little extra money every month, you put it into I don't know, an investment account or a high interest savings account, something secure, maybe something like that. But I don't foresee them at this point changing anything in terms of increasing the taxes or depleting the Social Security fund by giving people more money than they paid in for. It wouldn't work. Autumn says, you said hopefully he is a millionaire, the person I want to marry. Oh, I'm saying unfortunately it's not. Yeah, no, I didn't marry a millionaire either. But, no, as long as it's a good mate, it's worth its weight in gold, right? I think that's the best thing in life if you can find a good partner. You know, so many people don't, whatever. Divorce is so prevalent. I feel very, very grateful. And I was a late marrier. I went through a lot of frogs. I was a frog to many probably very nice men back in the day. But, you know, it just worked out perfectly. Perfect. And, you know, a poor guy. The anxiety is a nightmare. Yeah, it is a nightmare. And I really think there are a lot of coping skills, how to cope with anxiety, to own it and then like bully it down. And we have to train ourselves. And I think it could take years. It's probably along the lines of the meditation stuff. And whether you meditate secularly or you meditate within a faith, either one. This is just my personal perspective. I had started doing that like 10 years ago, you know, lying in bed. I was listening to some podcast type of stuff. It wasn't faith oriented at all, but it might have contributed to me kind of moving back into faith. And it's 10 years later, and I feel like I've got a good handle on it in terms of I do it every night. Every night. It's like one of my favorite times a day. But it is such a long, how do you say it? It's like it's a skill that takes a lot of practice and repetition over and over again. And, you know, I'm using the word meditate, guys, for lack of a better word. You know, practice it to get down that anxiety, and then it creeps in, right? And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I started thinking about it again. I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm supposed to think about this other thing. And that totally happens. And that still happens, but it happens less and less as the years go on, I'd say, although it's still there, because I got better at it. I don't know. And like I said, I think I started like 10 years ago. My kids were a lot younger, and it was definitely before COVID. But it is kind of a game changer. And I use people laugh at me, but I use these head wraps. It's almost like the kind you might see someone who jogs, you know, and it's got little Bluetooth earphones in there. They're really cheap. And because they're like head wraps, you can sleep in them, and, you know, and that's what I listen to stuff with. So my husband, he claims he can hear it, but I can turn it down too. You know, you can up and down the sound. And sometimes if it's too loud and I don't want it to be so loud, I will move the little circular thing off my ear and put it up higher so I can hear it less, when I really should be turning down the volume, because if he hears that little squeak, squeak, he has a sound machine. He refuses to do what I do. It is such a learning curve in the long term. But, you know, it's worth a shot if you're, you know, it doesn't cost you anything. So private conversation. Sorry about that, guys. Haidar Shimba. By any chance, are Social Security recipients getting more money? Someone just asked this. Social Security increases any act, bill, proposed, passed, or going to pass? Not as far as I know. Granted, I haven't really been paying attention lately. I've been immensely busy, so I haven't actually overtly looked, but I would like to think I would have heard something about that. But again, you have to always think, if someone's going to give me more money, where is it coming from? Is it coming from my Social Security fund, in which case I'm going to run out of money and they're going to have to stop paying me my money? You know, like it's pure math, guys. It's pure math. And you know, that's why I think getting rid of the waste is incredibly important. And they've been doing a fabulous job, because that's the only way to keep us Social Security people in pay and keep it strong going forward. But you can't increase what's going out unless you increase what's coming in a sustainable fashion, right? So Shub says he enjoyed the collaboration last week. Yeah. That was it's always fun when I do that with Jonathan. I always make jokes that I can barely stay up that late to do them at night. That's why I do the daytime lunch ones. He does the night ones because he's more of a night owl, I guess. Oops. Oh, bless you, Steph. Thanks, Deb. I can always use a little blessing for sure. RD says, do you get a W-2 or 1099 from SSDI payments? I know with VA disability, I do not receive any docs in order to claim on my taxes. Yes, you do. You get a 1099. It's not a W-2 because that's really for employees, but it's a 1099. Shows the income so that you can use it to file your taxes. Ooh, look at this. I think, are you a newbie here? What? God damn it. I don't think we've met, so nice to meet you. I don't recall your name. What is that a picture of? Is that a picture of somebody with a piece of cheese on their head? Anyway, what says, I filled out the CDR short form in February. Last week, I got a call or message saying they weren't going to do a review. Why did they call me and not in writing? I suspect they wanted to, it was a nice thing. They wanted you to know sooner than sending you the mail. And maybe they don't send mail for that. I think maybe they don't, because when people do the short form, then they don't hear anything for years and they're like, what happened? So I think the short form, I think maybe they don't send a letter to say, we're not going to do you. So that phone call was really nice, right? Because now you can like take a breather. Mike Pesci. Oh, is it Pesci? Like Joe Pesci? Do you know Joe Pesci? You know the name? I don't know if I'm dating myself. Thank you so much for providing the service. Oh, you're very welcome. Let's see. Michelle M says, when going through the SSDI process, do you always go through a CE exam? Not always, but almost always. I would say it's the vast majority. I do. I mean, I would say with my cases, it's probably 99% or something. Let's see. Daisy Duchess says hello. Let's see. Michelle says, back in the day, I was a caretaker for an older lady who had birds. She had a loud goose. Oh, I used to raise geese too. Crows, geese, Canada. Beautiful. Her cockatoo would always yell, shut up, Oppie. I don't know. I do. I love the birds. They're incredible. They're so interesting, particularly when they talk. Your attorney called you 5 minutes ago, an hour after you sent the email. Well, that's pretty good, because when someone sends an email, they don't usually get a phone call from me. So that's pretty good. I usually respond in the written form. Well, depends on what your question was, of course. But yeah, the written form is, although texting and messaging sometimes it can be confusing. People, like, I might sound curt or very cut and dry business-like, which I'm less likely to sound when you talk to me in person, because you know me, I'm a big old, funny duddy. But people misremember things that are told to them chronically. And it's particularly true in the disability field, because most of my people have memory problems from that anxiety or that depression or whatever. So I tend to want to keep things via message. There's things you can't do, like when we do hearing prep and initial interviews and stuff like that. But usually, and then so yesterday I had sorry, I'm going to sneeze again probably. Yesterday I had a conference with a client to work on the work history report, which for people that are over 50, it's really important to do it right. Meanwhile, we chatted for a very long time, like a couple of hours, and I had to actually tell us to cancel a different plan that I thought I could do to people, and I couldn't. but we accomplished the mission. It's all good. And it went on to like, I feel like it was 7 or 8 o'clock. I don't know. And by then my cold, it seems like the cold gets worse at night. Ever notice that when you have a cold? Okay, Daisy, the Duchess, asks, how long does a CDR recon usually take? How long does a CDR? I don't think there's any special time, you know? It's probably quicker than the original CDR, but hopefully so it sounds like you got ceased and you've on CDR, like you lost and you appealed it for reconsideration. I hope you're treating vigorously to prove that they were mistaken on the initial. Daisy. Okay. Dimple says, sorry for the confusion. I work from home. Oh, that's right. I work from home and my work records show my decline in work performance and productivity. So if you work from home, are you thinking when you come back to work, you can have access to your home computer and you can snapshot a few things? Is that what you're thinking? That makes sense. Oh, Jesse, I know. Jesse says you shouldn't work on weekends. You need work-life balance, or so I was told. I know. You know, it's funny. I think it's really different when you work for yourself and this is your baby. You know, this has been my baby for over 20 years. And it's true. I mean, I did try to do a little bit of balance in a sense that I wanted to work from a home office because I wanted to have kids and I didn't want to put them in daycare. So I did succeed at that. I have a very good husband. So, you know, there was always working together to make sure, you know, we could pay our bills as best we can and stuff like that. But by doing that and being self-employed, I could still do things like read books to the kindergarten class when one of my kids was in kindergarten or first grade. I could go on school trips, you know, when they'd go to the museum or whatever. I think once we went to Jersey City, something in Jersey. I forget what it is. It's some science big place. So you kind of have to pull the slack up elsewhere. Like if you're missing a whole day on a Tuesday, I was also team mom for Little League. That's like an unofficial little role, but I gotta, you know, and then one of my kids ended up cyber schooling. When she was young, she would be in, here, and I'd have to kind of oversee her a little bit and keep checking. Then, of course, within a couple of years, she was free riding and could do it all, you know, herself. I didn't have to. Now she just graduated high school, same school, Commonwealth Charter Academy. I want to say June, not May, June, I think. But it gives you kind of can expect to do both. And I really, it's going to sound strange, but I really wanted to change the cycle of, I don't want to say poverty. It wasn't poverty, but it was definitely, I would say, lower income that was kind of like a family, maybe generationally, including growing up, and probably same for my husband too. And so we always wanted to, do something to change that. When you come into adulthood being broke and you want to go to college, and there's nothing else, you're kind of in this cycle of, when I went into college and then law school, I put myself into debt until about a year and a half ago, paying a school payment that was due that was bigger than my mortgage. The only way I got to save for a mortgage was taking all my cash tips when I bartended. When I first started building my business, I worked like 6 days a night at a restaurant, 6 nights a week. You do what you got to do. That was before I had kids, but I don't know. Sometimes you just have to do that. And now I'm looking forward to pulling back because now my kids are older. I will take your advice there, Jesse. You don't want to burn your entire life away, and we're getting older and all that business. So I'm trying to structure things so I can do that. Streamline things even more than they are. Figure it all out. Oops, that was between Daisy and Deb. Papa's Place. A person you love and loves you back is worth more than $1 million. I agree. There's no value you can place on having a good relationship. You just cannot, particularly when it's a mate, right? It's they used to always say that thing. You can fall in love. They say to the women, I think, the girls. You can fall in love with a rich man as well as you can a poor man. Perhaps, perhaps not. I don't know. I know when we're younger, we're like kind of maybe influence to try to find the guy that has the, you know, the higher income career. But if you're not focusing on what you need to focus on in terms of who's going to be a good mate, that's not going to matter. Look at the divorce rate. It's crazy. Coldman RXP. I don't think we've met. Nice to meet you. Just got off the phone with Social Security, filed for Social Security and SSDI. Got a call back in less than an hour. That was very nice. She was very nice. Hope my next call I get from the claim person goes as well. All right. So it sounds like maybe you got a call from the local field office about your application. Are you filing for early retirement and for disability? Perhaps. And then she maybe had to confirm something with you. And then she'll be shipping the disability portion of that claim alone up to the medical workup office. And I hope you win that. That way you don't get stuck with that early retirement that you opted to file for, because that's like a 35% cut, right? If you're 62. A little bit less of a cut the closer you get to 67. Daisy says, panic attacks are unpredictable, though. They come from nowhere. Yeah, they do. I think when, you know, for those that have panic attacks, for documentary purposes and case strengthening, you probably, that might be something to journal. Put it in a little calendar, like had a panic attack today, had to run out of the store, you know, just the briefness. Don't get like all wordy. Nobody wants to read your diary, so to speak, because they are unpredictable. But if they're not frequent, it's not going to be much of a help to a case. I mean, maybe you shouldn't be an airline pilot flying people up in the sky because you might have a panic attack and crash the plane. But regular jobs like in an office or, you know, cashier or something, they're not going to hold less frequent panic attacks as a big, huge deal, I don't think. The more frequent they are, the more interruptive they are. So a journal can help you quantify how often they are, how long they last, what maybe is accompanied with them. And when you panic, is some people panic internally and it's just like, you know, they sweat it up. Some people are like, they got to run for the hills and get the heck out. So it makes a difference, right? Yeah, the frequency. And I would also say, if you keep a journal, give it to your therapist and say, I just want, like every month, be like, I'm assuming they're at least monthly. These are the days I had the panic attacks and here was the situation. I'm wondering if we can figure out a way that I can better cope and prevent this from happening in that situation next time, or should I be avoiding going to the store, you know, altogether? You know, it would be a great way to get that information in front of her, so then her notes might talk about how you had 3 panic attacks in 1 month, had to leave your cart in the store with the ice cream melting and run out the door and go home, you know, or whatever the case may be. It's so important to get the evidence in the medical file as best you can. Having it in your journal alone is not in the medical file. It's still better than nothing, and you would submit it to the judge, maybe with a SSA 795 certified statement saying, you know, here's my journal. As you could see, I had, you know, 7 panic attacks in February and 4 in March and 12 in April. Papa's Place says, question, why would you have to send in medical records if you signed a consent form for the SSA to get them? Is it med records you get after they have pulled but before the decision? Yeah, good question. Good question. I would say yes, that's kind of exactly what it is. And sometimes the SSA, the adjudicator, is unsuccessful. They send out the consent and your doctors ignore them. So they're supposed to send it out twice. Doctors ignore them again. I'd like to think they send you a letter and say, can you please call them? And then you can get on your doctors and your doctor's office and say, listen, you know, I need these. Because if they try twice and they don't get it, they're going to make a decision without those records. And there's not a wrong to that. So to the extent you can stay on top of what they have, and, you know, if you don't have a representative who can see in your electronic file, I don't think you should feel bad about calling the adjudicator every couple of weeks, you know, and saying, do you have this and that? And for sure, you know, what you put in your application and the 3368, where you put the medical providers you've had, what you put in there is just limited to that, up to that day. They don't know about any future visits unless you call and tell them. We send it up in writing so I can see that they, it's in the file that, you know, we said, the claimant has seen so-and-so, has a new doctor, so-and-so, and that's how we get it up there. Sometimes it's verbal as well, but not always. But that's why they fail sometimes. I mean, how many of you have gotten denials with the explanatory page that says, we got these records. We didn't get all your records, but we think we had enough to make the decision of no. All right. Yeah, La Lulu saying, yes, I mean the ERE, Electronic Records Express, electronic record file. Current advocate is family member, though high military rank, that means squat. Sorry. And APMP, nurse practitioner. Can you access ERE to check for missing as a paid legal consultant? No. They have to be the 1696er, and they have to be registered with the SSA to do that. So you need a 1696, and they have to already be a pre-existing registered attorney, approved to do that. Yeah. Have you tried, La Lulu, to do the 3288 and request your file? I know it's not ideal because it's so slow. I would ask them to email it to you. Some of this CD or paper business. Okay. Reborn Doll Mama. Howdy doody. Getting DAC paperwork function report ready. Rescheduled federal appeal precedent. Researched federal appeal precedent on retrospective diagnosis. Did you find anything good? Is it also in your circuit? Make sure you have it in your circuit. Should I include a sheet with some case law quotes to show DDS? Autism diagnosis after 2022. It can't hurt you to do that. Ideally, you do it in the proper circuit, because in a sense, it's like binding. Whereas if it's an alternative circuit, don't you whine at me? The Bernese is whining at the door. You have to wait. Yeah, and with autism, usually that's from birth, right? So you say the diagnosis after 22. That's such a shame. That means the medical profession totally failed. Totally failed. Did you did you or the child, I don't know if you are the child, IEPs in school? Like elementary school, high school? Those would be things you'd want to get to. The evidence that shows there was a problem beforehand. Randy, nice to see you. This might be a weird question, Stephanie. Are your employees long-term employees? They're actually not W-2ers. They are by contract with me. And I would say currently, no, not right now, not terribly long. One person's, getting up there. Liz is getting up there. But I used to have someone who was, it was like 10 years, 11 years, something like that. And then she kind of retired and stuff. She was actually kind of retired when she started with me. Yeah, I miss her. She was very good. But Liz does a bang-up job also. And then aside from Liz, I'd say no, because it's all part-time. It's all contracts. And it can be, a lot of the stuff I use people for is very mind-numbing work. Getting the medical chronologies together, organizing the medical records, putting them into it's like data entry almost, like going through a big medical. If someone's not familiar with medical records, it's hard. It takes a learning curve. I'd say it could take a while. So Liz is my go-to girl now. She keeps me saying. Cold Man says, what's that mean, Deb? DDS. DDS is the Disability Determination Services. Some states vary in the name, but every state has a disability agency, both for their own programs, but they outsource them to the feds. The feds pay them so that they can do the medical workup for the Social Security claimants in their state. That would be the Disability Determination Services of that state government, but they follow the federal law when they're doing the, outsourced to the feds to work on Social Security cases. Cold Man says, okay, well, I hope so. Then, if it's a good thing, I have no idea what I'm doing. Just that I should go ahead and file both in my situation. I will tell you this. If you need money now and you cannot survive without the early retirement, you got to do what you got to do. Just know that if you lose on your disability claim, you are stuck with reduced retirement benefits forever. And it's significantly reduced. I think you said above that you were 22. $2,000 a month. Now you're getting what? $1,400, $1,300. Am I doing that right? Something much smaller for the rest of your life. So if you're if you don't know what you're doing, I would recommend you probably hire somebody. They don't charge, there's no out of pocket. So it would behoove you. You might have a tough time getting someone because you will be already getting your early retirement. So there'll be very limited back benefits to get if you win your SSD, right? Much smaller. So a lot of attorneys aren't going to want to do it because they will not be able to get paid for all of their work because the back benefits will be too small. So that's something to think about too when you're taking early retirement. Some people decide not to take early retirement, but they fortunately have a spouse who's working and they can, or they themselves are working part-time under SGA and they could still work and still file for Social Security disability and they don't have to take the early retirement. That's another option, particularly if they want to get representation. Because I know we do take some that are on early retirement, but we take a limited number. So it's typically always waitlisted too. I have some waitlisted categories where I can't take everyone who wants the help because for whatever reason, like we need to stay afloat. So we can only take so many pro bono cases. And that would be at least a partially pro bono case. Like out the door. Okay. Coldman is in Kentucky. Daisy the Duchess says the original CDR was about 5 weeks. They didn't read the medical records and decided prior to the GI procedure that shows continued problems. Yeah. Keep pushing there, Daisy. Let's see. I'm just skipping through some personal conversations on here. I'm so glad you guys all help each other. It's super sweet. RG is in the house and says hello from California. Okay. Let's see. Okay. La Lulu says former feather mom, still a fur mom. All right. She used to have the birds too. Former feather mom, still a fur mom. 11 years ago, I raised, 745 pheasants from day old to full adult release. Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. Loads of toys and attention. 45, how on earth? Fave game was running through sprinkles and summer's heat. 700. They weren't all at the same time, were they? Did they fill up your backyard? Or do you have a really big backyard? Wow. Oh, that's so sweet. Daisy the Duchess says, good idea for the panic attack journal. I avoid people and places as much as possible. And I'm typically nocturnal to avoid people. It's documented. Repeatedly documented, though. Remember, repeatedly, durationally is what their ideal is. I just got a text from my son. Hold on. He wants me to put money in his account so he can fill the tank. So I'm going to do that just give me a second. He's driving now, so he fills the tank. But, of course, Mom has to pay for it. So pay and transfer. It is, you gotta admit, technology is pretty sweet. Transferring from my account to his. Only $50 is enough. Oops, I must give him $500. He would blow it in a New York minute. But I think he got a job. We've been busting his chops because he's the only person. I mean, he's 17. Should have had a job a year ago. My daughter had a job at 14, working papers. He actually got working papers, and it's true, he applied a lot of places and didn't get hired. I'm scrolling down, guys, just to see if there's a Mel. Have we met, Mel? I don't think so. My friend has fear of waiting rooms, agoraphobia, panic disorder, bulging disc, can't lift her patients anymore. So if she was in the medical field, has not seen doctors in over a year. Any hope of approval? Pretty much not. She has appealed once. She should probably just withdraw her application. I'm just saying she should consider this. Withdrawing her application, making sure her DLI is way, way, way out in the future. She hasn't seen doctors in a year. That's what we do when we're not impaired significantly anymore. So she just pretty much sunk her ship with that one, most likely. Obviously, fluky things can happen. But if she's going to be heading to a hearing like that, down she goes. So why get a judge's denial on your record? That is res judicata carved in stone. Whereas denials on initial and recon, and you don't take it any further, when you file again, they don't really speak to it very much. And so I think it's a better view on your next next application. But yeah, your friend needs to be seeing a therapist, maybe a psychiatrist for medications management if she's on that. I would be journaling the panic attacks, bulging discs. Everyone has bulging discs, so that itself doesn't mean anything. But does she have MRIs of her back to show how bad it is and an ongoing treatment for it? That would be physical therapy, conservative treatments, It's got to be robust, vigorous. If you're going to claim to be so disabled from a medical impairment that you cannot work and you're asking for disability benefits to come out of the fund, you have to be taking your own medical problems as seriously as you claim other people should. And if you're not going to treatment, it really, and following. So some people are like, but yeah, but they can't do anything for me. Then follow up and keep it monitored as vigorously as possible with updated diagnostics. They don't cure you, but they certainly show a declining situation. Because without it, the chances of not winning are great. Reborn. Yeah, you want your circuit, ideally, because that's the one that's binding on your case. The other ones, nobody has to listen to. It's not that they're not helpful. If there is no cases in your circuit, yeah, then, a different circuit can be a crumb. I'm saying, well, look what they did over there. But you really want to see if you can find it in your own circuit. And the Social Security rulings are big. Justin Umholtz says, hi, Justin. I have an ALJ hearing tomorrow for schizophrenia and mental health. What type of questions should I expect? I would say, are you pro se, Justin? Review your function report. Did you talk about your, like when you look, your day to day and how your conditions affect you? It's really hard when it's mental health, like a significant mental health problem like schizophrenia, because a lot of the time the patient isn't going to be able to articulate it very well. So the judges probably go very gently. It's important to know if you're not stable. So even though he might ask you stuff, what if he doesn't ask this? Then you're going to want to bring it out. If you're pro se yourself, you kind of have to ask the questions of yourself. So like, are they changing your medications a lot because you're unstable? Like they're not working too well? Any legal issues or interpersonal issues you get into fights? How do your symptoms affect your ability to deal with your regular day-to-day life when you're not working? Did they affect you when you were working? Did they get worse when you were working? How about, can you negotiate the community by yourself? Or do you have to have someone with you because you hear things? Do you hear things? Auditory and visual hallucinations, if any, are huge, I think, because it's a bit of a delusion, right? So maybe focus on those things. I don't know what he's going to ask you. It'll probably depend on what your medical records say. If they appear to show that you're pretty stable, because a lot of people with schizophrenia can work because they're stable on their medication. So it really depends on how you're doing. I mean, they don't want to pigeonhole a person with schizophrenia as disabled their whole life if they have this, they become stable and they can do things and, kind of have a regular life with it. Self-sustaining, self-sufficient, all that. Hi, Virginia. Virginia Gomez. Good morning. If a case wins for SSI, does SSA give lump sum or payments after 3 years of waiting? SSI versus SSD. If you're only getting SSI and it's more than a few thousand, yes, they will divvy it up in thirds and pay it. I don't know if it's in thirds, actually. I shouldn't say that. It might be in thirds. They'll pay the first amount now, the next amount in 6 months, and then the last amount another 6 months. However, if you need that back benefits now, maybe you have some debts, maybe you're going to be evicted, you're going to buy a house, you have a good reason for it, they will pay it up front. The reason why they do it in payments is so that you're not going to be in danger of not spending it down, so that when the deadline comes, they give you a certain amount of months to spend it down. If you have too much money left at the end of that period, now you'll be kicked off of SSI because you have too much money. So that's why they give you a small amount so that you have time to spend it, and then give you the next one. But again, if you want to do something that's good for your future, like put money down in a little tiny house that you can afford on your SSI, or maybe go halvesies with somebody else, that's a great way to spend it, because then you don't potentially have a mortgage or a rent. There's always smart ways to spend back benefits. I should say smarter. Oh gosh, guys. Wait a minute, an hour and a half in? Ooh, Lalulu says, my last ERE question after advocate comment accidentally deleted. Oh. I meant to ask if you, Stephanie, will personally be able to access my ERA to check for missing evidence with paid consult. No. Again, what I said was someone has to be 1696 and your representative, and they have to be registered with the SSA to enter the ERA. So if I was your representative, yes, then once they connected me, I would have access to your electronic file. But otherwise, not on a mere consult. Nope. That's just a private arrangement. It's not connected to the SSA in any way. Kimberly Kane, talking to Mel. Reborn says, female autism, very underdiagnosed, plus came from home with parent with mental illness, so her needs were really not addressed or met. Has never been able to work successfully after high school. You know, depends. SSA's idea of successfully working is usually if you can manage 6 months straight before getting canned or quitting, that's successful. So sometimes people think, yeah, like I work for 8 months, then I get canned or I run away or, or I quit. I can only do it like 8 months. Well, that's considered successful under the standards for SSA and SSD because you are having sustained work. Just because you decide to quit or it falls south later, it's when they stop being able to do that. And it's something less than 6 months with a big gap in between and all that it might be considered failed work attempts. But otherwise, they're successful work attempts. And if she's been able to pull off work for, say, a few months even at a time, it might, even though that's not successful work attempt, it might be indicative that she's not severely autistic of the kind that, is prohibitive of ever working for somebody. Oh, Dimple, she probably already left, but yes, thank you for stopping in and go do that therapy. Lalu says your assistant Liz is on the ball. Yes, she is. Courteous, prompt, and seems truly dedicated like you. She is. She is. You too, Dimple. Have a great day and a wonderful session. Yes, thank you. You're welcome. Crystal K. Hi, Stephanie from Southern Oregon. Hi, Crystal. RD says, hi, Deb. I'm trying to stay positive. I got my first denial and getting ready to appeal. Stay strong. Yeah. Crystal K says, it sounds like you're in need of a hot toddy. Hope you feel better soon. Yeah, I do need a hot toddy, but I don't do hot toddies alone. So, and my husband's away in Harrisburg working, so I'll have to wait till the weekend. By then I should be better, right? Well, let's say a cold, 3 days coming, 3 days there, 3 days going or something. Okay. Friends, lovers forever. Okay, nice to meet you. I don't think we've met. Hello, I'm going to settle a workers' comp case buyout. I collect SSDI and I am 65. If I settle for $100,000, how will this affect my SSDI? Or can I offset this amount through expectancy of my years left in my life? You're going to have to ask your workers' comp. I steer clear of that. I just know the very limited, basic, bare bones. Now, I do think for what this is worth, if there is the offset, I believe once you switch to Social Security retirement, there is no offset. I believe. Do your due diligence, friends, though. I apologize. I do not stay on top of that because there's 50 states with 50 workers' comp statutes. And I'm just not, I can't follow them all. So I would imagine this is going to, and I don't know if so if you're thinking life expectancy, what is that now? Like 78 or something like that? 80? So that gives you 15 years. You divvy up the K. If it drags out that long, but I don't think it does go against Social Security retirement. I think it only goes against disability. So there is that. I think. Look it up. Sorry, but that would be if it was 10 years, that would be 10,000 a year. 15 years, what would it be, like 1,000 a year? 500 coming off the top every month. If it were to be dragged out that long, which I feel like it isn't going to be. So I'm sorry I can't give you a clear answer on that. My bad. Oh, Chilnick. Hi, Chilnick. Nice to see you. I have an appointment to hopefully get my entire disability file tomorrow at my local SSA office as I was just denied on my initial. Okay. Ooh, you got an appointment. That's great. So far, I faxed over my 3288 and filled it out as you've suggested. but the office usually gives me a hard time with any request. Isn't that incredible? It's like they work for you. Any suggestion on how to push back if they refuse to give me the appropriate records? So do they know why they made the appointment for you? Why would they make an appointment if they don't know what they're supposed to be doing? And they can email you those records. You shouldn't even have to go in there. Ridiculous. Oh, I think I'm going to sneeze again. Woo. Oh, Lola was talking about she had with the raising of the day-old ringneck pheasants. There were 745 all at once. Wow. Had to do round-the-clock shift help. Huge pen with soft flight net cover in backyard. And you accidentally ended up fostering them. Yeah. Isn't it always that way? You couldn't help yourself. Daniel Manny. Did we ask this already, Daniel? Sorry that you are sick. Is it true that there is no 5-year CDR? It's 5 to 7 years, so no, that's not true. I mean, it's 5 to 7, and sometimes it occurs at 5, and sometimes it occurs 6, 7, or even 8, So I would say that's not true. I would say being short-staffed, if they wanted to do it 5, they probably did have to push it off. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means that they didn't have enough resources to do them. You know what I mean? That frequently. Justin says that he does have hallucinations and delusions. If you've ever gotten things that you could put in, I think I mentioned this before, Justin. Have you gotten in any legal trouble due to your schizophrenia? Did you ever have to be involuntarily committed? That stuff should all be in your record. If it isn't, you want to find out. Any police stuff, if you have any, won't be in front of the ALJ unless you go and put it in front of him. So if you have any of that stuff, I would get it. If you haven't spoken to the ALJ office, you can ask them to email you a copy of your file so you can see what's in there to see if anything's missing. That's particularly important if you don't have an attorney. And for some people that do have an attorney, it's still important for them to do it. Virginia says, the way you explain things are great. Oh, thank you. That's why I send family and friends your way. Keep up the great job. Well, if they should mention your name if they come my way, Virginia, for sure. I'll take special care. Daisy says, what should I be hounding my doctors to document for my fibromyalgia? What should I be hounding my doctors to document for my iron deficiency? Yeah, that's tough. You know that fibromyalgia is a tough one. Well, do they do trigger point tests on you at every visit? Most doctors don't. Some do, I shouldn't say that. Because it'll show the waxing and the waning, and on this particular day, you've got, the tenderness. The physical exam, are you in pain? Does the mere slight touch hurt you? Do you look fatigued? I mean, it really depends. And fibromyalgia is that tough one because it's very subjective, right? I mean, the iron infusions are not subjective. I would say you're probably very fatigued. Maybe they should be describing, the fatigue level and the need to take naps and take extra naps to help overcome some of the fatigue. Talk to them maybe about that. Angie Vasquez. The VE said I couldn't do my previous job, but she did have a couple of jobs based on the one hypothetical the judge had. But once she added the off task, she said no jobs. What is the WD? What is WD at YT? What do you think? What do you think? See, I'm not as slow as I look. Still unknown. Is the judge going to buy that you have to be off task to the same extent as that? That would be the second hypothetical. Because remember, the first one was out the off task. So there was, in fact, 2 hypotheticals. The second one was with the off task. Fingers crossed for you, Angie. Breach. Lancaster, not too far from me. I was approved for SSI and SSDI in November on my second attempt and appeal. I learned a great deal while waiting for my hearing, like preparing for hearing. Best wishes. Oh, I'm so glad. Awesome. Glad to be of service. Okay. Yeah, I'll feel better soon. RD, you're welcome. Hope you feel better soon. Thank you for chatting with us. Oh, Danny Ray. Jay, I'm not stable. RDM, I'm mad. Just went to RDM. What is RDM? I'm mad. Just went to neurological doctor. Ask a question. She said, see your PCP about headache. In the 80s, my doctor knew everything. She should have answered my questions. I know. The medical industry is not everything we'd like it to be. That is so true. I tend to avoid it like the plague myself. Is your headache migraines or just headaches? If it's migraine, which means you're relegated to bed when they come upon you and you feel nauseous and you got to be in the dark with cold, maybe a cold compress or a cold room, and it can last for many hours and even over a day or 2 at times. If you have that kind of thing, Danny, I would be going to a migraine specialist, which is probably a neurologist who specializes in migraines. Clearly, the neurologist you went to does not. Or if you described your headaches in a way that is clear that they are not migraines, that too. Wow, Justin, I had 4 involuntary inpatients in the last 2 years. Okay, now we're talking. Yep. Make sure, Justin, that all 4 of those, the medical records from all 4 of those are before the ALJ. Can you, again, I don't know if you have representation. If you don't, you need to, I would call the ALJ's office and say, I'm trying to find out all the records that they have because I want to make sure that nothing's missing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Hugs to you, Justin. That's got to be hard. It's got to be hard. And fingers crossed for you. I think, I don't want to see anyone involuntary admitted, but if you're fighting a case on, if you're under 50 and you're fighting a case on completely mental health, that is some of the best evidence. It will also be what you're doing now with your therapist and stuff. Hopefully it's very robust and you're following up and, you know, being very involved with that. Daisy's saying that, I bet you're saying that he doesn't give me physical exams testing for my pain at every visit. Yeah, I mean, isn't that what it's all about? Daisy says, the iron and B12 is exhausting. Yeah, they sent me a fatigue report this time and I was happy with that. Good. And they should. Let's see. Yeah, Daisy, the medical industry is pretty shabby in a lot of instances. Okay, I think we're down to the bottom yet. Here's Crystal. What's your email address? I have a question that's too long. It won't let me submit it here. You can email assistant@joydisability.com. Assistant@joydisability.com. If we can do a video on whatever question you have, that would be something we'll do for you. Daisy's talking to Tim. George, aren't you sweet? That's very sweet. I will not read that out loud, but I think it's very sweet. I'm sniveling today, George. I think I have to take like double up on NyQuil tonight. Really knock myself out. I wish I could remember if I took it last night. I intended to, but then I got something happened. There was something I was catching on TV and I wanted to go see it. I remember putting down the cup. Does that mean I didn't drink it? I don't know. You know those little tiny things. I have a feeling I didn't because I should have been so sleepy on a dose of that. All right. Are we good, guys? Shall we say adieu? Anybody have any questions? I'll give you 2 minutes to get it in there. Otherwise, we'll call it a day. It's 2:43, so we've been about almost 2 hours. Anybody? I'm trying to think if there's anything going on. One thing I haven't done that I was supposed to do, I was reporting on all those charts that the SSA put out about their progress in speeding things up and assisting in the processes, unlike we've ever seen in this very slow process. And I go through the first part, and I was going to do all of them, right? Because there was a ton of them. It was like really, they gave a lot of information. I did the one, and I still haven't done the other ones. And this was like, so they were basically summing up their progress in chart form so one could see through July, I think, of 2025. So it's, you know, we did the whole, I think that was probably about the time my husband had his surgery, and then we went to the shore for a little end of the summer long weekend with the kids and their friends. So I don't know. I was kind of focusing, I guess, on keeping my cases, you know, while I was splitting that time as who was it that said I shouldn't do that? Take your weekends off. But yeah, things like this is why sometimes you have to pick and choose, right? Reborn says, thank you for everything you do, Stephanie. Your video on the 820 form was so helpful. Oh, good. For us to show our DAC gal has never made SGA. Hoping for good things now that we are at DDS. Oh, fingers crossed for you, Reborn. For sure. I know it's not easy with the autism and all that business. The mental health in general is hard with young people. But if you can get whatever you can get from before she was 22, not just the diagnosis at 22, which I know seems, like I said, ridiculous because autism is generally chronic, usually from at least toddlerhood when they recognize it. You know, those IEPs could be good. Did she leave school early too? I don't know. Just do some thinking about the stuff that could exist back before 22. Okay. All right, kiddos. I think I'm going to boogie on out of here and go blow my nose in private. If anybody has a video thought, feel free to email it to assistant@joydisability.com and we will take a look-see. If you want us to give a quick review about whether or not we could represent you, We have an opening in your category. You can go to joydisability.com, and in the upper left is that link for free SSD evaluation. And over to the right is the link for if you need a prepaid consultation, which is for people that we don't represent and who are not otherwise represented by an attorney or a non-attorney rep. So anyway, thanks, Deb. Crystal has something else. Working part-time, made too much money. Oh, shame. And SSA says no longer. Oh my goodness, Crystal. No. But I will say this. Go month by month with what you made. Do you have, I assume you were W-2. If you were not a W-2 and you were a 1099 self-employed person, you can perhaps there's some business expenses you didn't write off that would bring you down under the monthly SGA. I don't know how long that 50,000 covers. I mean, you could do a prepaid consult with that, Crystal, like an hour. I wouldn't suggest going longer than that. I'll get to you, Timothy. I see you there. Another thing some people can do, and again, this is if you're not too far away from SGA on a monthly basis, not on the $50,000 basis. IRWs, impairment-related work expenses. Those could include copays for all your specialists, or if you have to buy medications that helped you work. Those can be deducted off of the monthly amount, and sometimes that brings people under SGA. It crushes me when people don't pay attention when they're working, when they're collecting disability. It's so hard. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Crystal. Timothy says, I have venous ablation in both legs and 2 stents in groin. I'm 55, a 28-year-old truck driver. A 28-year truck driver. Can I pass the grid roll? Potentially, because you're over 50. I don't know. Do you still have your CDL? Or are you not able to keep your CDL? Are you barred from it due to medical problems? You know, we'd really have to take a look. If you have an attorney, this won't work for you. Just ask your attorney. But if you don't and you want to reach out to us, go ahead. I would say just go to joydisability.com and fill out that eval, Timothy, in the upper left. And then just say that you spoke to me on here and it'll come right to me. It won't have to go through the regular, what do we say, filtering. They know what categories are waitlisted and what's not. But I see nothing here to suggest it is. Doesn't mean there might not be something you put in there that I'm like, oh, that actually is waitlisted. But you can give that a shot if you're not represented. And I'll definitely take a look at it, okay? Yeah, Crystal says she was on a W-2 when she earned too much. Yeah, unless you can get it down under SGA. You have to know you have something to fight. Like if you have some of the facts in your favor. And that would be those IRWs, Crystal. And you can't do the business expenses because you weren't self-employed. So think of IRWs, you know, if that would bring you down. If you're way over SGA, like $800 over SGA every month, it's probably not going to be able to be done. If you are no longer working because of your disabilities, you can probably file again under expedited reinstatement, notwithstanding this. Don't forget also, if you're like, no, they have the goods on me, I did it, blah, 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 I was overpaid. If it would be a hardship under their standards to pay it back, which is particularly true if you're not working anymore, you can ask for a waiver. Those are kind of hard to get. But if you don't get a waiver, you ask for a payment plan that is completely doable, you know, which is going to depend on your income, and they're going to decide. Because remember, paying back the SSA, pardon me again, guys, is not supposed to be the last bill you pay. Some people go, well, I can't pay that because I got to pay my credit card. And no. It comes before your credit cards. You know, it might be, now if you have a car payment, I don't know, people need their cars to get to, say, the doctors. But do you have a $1,000 a month car payment, or do you have a used car? You know, like were you being extravagant when you bought the car? So those kind of pricings and stuff like that. But a payment plan can be really doable. And then if you do file again because you're still disabled and now maybe you've been aggravated, your condition's been aggravated, now you can't do that 50 grand or whatever you're earning, you can do the expedited reinstatement. And then they might take a little payment plan off of that, but maybe it's going to be less of him. You can always ask for a new payment plan when situations change. High breach. Yeah, Crystal, if you want a prepaid consultation, I mean, they're not the cheapest thing in the world, but, you know, it can get you the information you want. And it's just one-on-one. We could Zoom or use the phone, and it's always me. It's nobody else. Okay, Timothy, so you can't sit long enough. That would be Would that be from, hold on a minute, the leg problem? It hurts. At 55, do you have other problems too? Do you have like arthritis? If you do, if your back hurts, it's not the leg thing, consider getting that worked up too. MRIs showing that there's a problem that would affect sitting and standing, limited to some degree. I mean, you still pass the medical exams, but so for other reasons, you don't feel that you can do it. So, it could be you could prove, remember the 3 prongs, can't do your prior job, can't transfer those skills. And I can say that truck driving generally has no transferable skills. That's in writing from the SSA. So, even though it's a high skilled job, it's not one that's going to transfer to a sedentary job or a light job. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, and you're 55. So as long as you can prove that you are unable to exertionally do a job more than sedentary or light, so for the physical reasons, then if you can thread that needle and prove that sufficiently through your medical records, of course, always, you can meet the grids. Timothy, how do you know you've got what do you mean by DQB? Spell it out, por favor. Virginia says, may God bless you. I sure hope so. Thank you, Virginia. And have a great rest of the week, Chica. You too, Chica. Okay. All right, guys. I think we're good, right? Are we good? Magic, did you want to ask anything else or clarify? You mean, so are you referring about a federal quality review? We didn't really call it DQB. Within the Social Security framework, or are you talking about something with federal work, like with a federal job, that kind of, or VA? If you're talking about a federal quality review, FQR, you don't always know. Although I feel like they've been telling people on their online portal now, the Social Security access that you guys have, I feel like they've been saying that. But I know historically we wouldn't know. We didn't know if we won. They didn't get anyone's hopes up until they went through if they were going to have an FQR that they did. But it might be changing now. Oh, SSA, yeah. So you're talking about federal quality review. That usually means that you were like the adjudicator found you disabled, and now, because I feel like the FQRs are on the awards, not on the denials. So, anyhow. All right, guys, I'm going to split so I don't disgust you more with my sneezing and sniveling. Have a great week. And if you catch a cold, I'm so sorry. But isn't it great we're remote so you don't have to catch it from me? All right, guys. I'll talk to you later. Hopefully I'll see you next Wednesday. Same bat time, same bat station, and of course, 12 o'clock pre-recorded every day. All right? Ciao for now, guys. Bye.